Friends, we have a real treat for you. We're here in the historic courthouse in Tombstone, Arizona. And we have a young lady here, Erica Way. And Erica is going to take us on a tour. She actually is you're the park ranger, am I correct?
Yes, I am a park ranger and officially the park manager here at the courthouse.
And this is a state park.
Yes, we are Arizona's second state park.
Really?
Yes.
Well, so many neat things to do. I mean, you can't tell that we're promoting Tombstone here because we are. Because a lot of people don't understand. They hear of Arizona and the Grand Canyon. They don't realize there's just some huge treasures here. And Tombstone's one of them.
Absolutely.
So much history, and we got, this is a whole series for years. We start covering all the things that go on in Tombstone. But the courthouse was really an important part of the culture. I mean, because without some sort of legal organization, you got no society.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the courthouse group.
Well, and you're absolutely right with that. Tombstone is probably most famously known for its gun battles, the Old West, the Wild West, the Cowboys, the Indians. But truth be told, Tombstone actually sat as a seat for the county offices and law and order, essentially. And that's exactly what this building was constructed for. So this sat as the original Cochise County building starting in 1882. It was actually, the construction was just started 136 years ago this month.
No kidding.
Yes, sir. And it stayed the county offices here up until 1929 when the county voted to move to Bisbee. But they actually kept the offices here for another 2 years after that while they were constructing the new courthouse. So literally when you start talking about Tombstone and history of the Wild West, it literally walked right through our front doors.
That's true. Where we are, of course, we got pictures of wasn't there some sheriff named Behan or something like?
Yeah, there was that guy named John Behan, and he had a bit of a rivalry with that other guy. You might have heard of Wyatt, right?
The Earp people.
Yeah,
okay.
He was actually the first sheriff who served in the building here.
Oh, no. Well, it's a fascinating place. Of course, you've got, like I said, friends, we don't have enough time. Like I said, this would be a mini series in itself just on if we saw everything here in the courthouse. But we're going to ask Erica if she will show us some of the high spots, shall we say.
Yes.
And by the way, we won't miss the gallows. I mean, I want to miss the gallows, but
you don't want to hang out.
No, I don't. That was good. That was quick. No, but it's a fascinating place and one that now you folks, you're open what?
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And this is one of the real focal. This is one of the real attractions here that someone does not want to miss in Tombstone. No. Well, all right, ma'am. Let's. We're following you with the camera.
Okay.
You point us in the right. Here we go.
Well, let me show you first our newest collection, which has gotten a lot of attention and something that really drive our local historians quite wild here, which is the Josephine Earp collection.
Now we're talking letters from. Now, did Josephine or Wyatt write the letters?
Josephine wrote the letters. Josephine did the corresponding on behalf of Wyatt. And the letters are between her and John Flood, who was Wyatt's unpaid personal secretary. That's quite the title, isn't it?
Well, it really is, but I mean, this is real. It's history that we can actually see.
Absolutely. So John Flood was essentially assigned the job of writing the manuscript of Wyatt Earp's original biography. And so this collection dates to that time frame where he's corresponding directly with Josephine, who's speaking on Wyatt's behalf, about the upcoming manuscript. So you've got personal interview letters and a little bit of everything in this collection.
Well, let's take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. So Johnny, this here is the Josephine Earp collection, and you can see there's a variety of different documents out on display, as well as photographs and the pocket watches, one of which is on loan to us at this point in time. But these are all part of that collection that I was referencing between John Flood and Josephine. John Flood kept every communication, the envelopes and everything, from talking with Josephine, getting into Wyatt Earp's biography. He also managed their finances and their record keeping. So there are records in there in the collection that reference the mine that they owned in California. Also, Josephine's last will and testament is part of the collection. The original shorthand notes he made while interviewing Wyatt. And just general day-to-day communications between him and Josephine. I've even seen in one of the letters where he's talking about the lovely basket of grapefruit that he received and how much he enjoyed it. So it literally is encompassing just about everything from the mundane everyday to those very, very important original Wyatt Earp interview documents.
Well, these people were bigger than life. I mean, they were bigger. I mean, these people were historic giants in history, shall we say, certainly in the Old West. And even though we have about 30 seconds of gunplay that really amplified, it was almost like a catalyst because everything in the whole area was so volatile. I mean, you had the mines, you had the Chinese with underground passages between all kinds of things. And so this is fascinating. Actually, here's a picture of Wyatt in his later years right here, and these were their watches. I mean, this is again, we're talking historical giants of the age, the things that have affected literally millions of people around the world. So this is a fascinating collection, and this is so good. Now, you folks got this last year? Is that correct?
Yeah, we got it about a year ago, and it's been out on display since January of this year. And so this is actually only a small portion of the collection. The collection itself is very large, so it gets rotated out once every quarter. So if you're really into it, you can either make a reservation to see more of it all at once privately, or just keep coming back and we'll keep updating it for you.
So these are actually letters. Joseph wrote this, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is Joseph's handwriting.
Yes.
Well, again, for those of us, I'll tell you what, friends, you know, we had two movies at the same time. You had Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner, and of course, Dennis Quaid, who was here. Such a really nice guy. That's all we can say. Dennis Quaid really, I think, exemplifies what we would like to believe that some of these actors are. A lot of them aren't, but he's really a nice fellow. He just impressed everyone. And then, of course, we had, last year, we had the Kurt Russell movie, the Tombstone. And, you know, the Tombstone movie sort of kicked off cowboy action shooting. It was such a fabulous representation. Some of it wasn't true, of course, but a lot of it was. And it was such a time that we'll never see again. The late 1800s, you had post-Civil War. You had the Clantons, the outlaw Clantons. A lot of them were Confederate veterans and came out, but they were not, we were talking outlaws here. We're talking rustlers. We're talking guys that could not, they had to get out of their own country where they were from and come out here to kind of no man's land for a while. Then you had the Republican contingent, which were primarily Union soldiers. And so it was a volatile mix. I mean, it was, and then you had the Chinese element and all sorts of immigrants here. So Tombstone really, and again, that movie, the movie Tombstone, started sort of a renaissance of Old West appreciation. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. We get people in here on a regular basis asking specific follow-up questions based off of the information they've obtained straight from the movie. Yeah.
Well, and again, of course, here's what the movie didn't do. A lot of what actually happened was a lot more bizarre than the movie. I mean, you know, in 2 or 3 hours, you can only say so much. And when you come here and you start delving into history, I mean, a lot of it was bizarre. Like Big Nose Kate, what happened to her, her dock split up. Big Nose Kate went on to become a regular person, a wife. She's buried at Wilcox. A lot of interesting things, and certainly the Earp saga, but you had a tremendous number of hard cases that happened to come here. Was it because of the money?
The money would have absolutely driven a lot of it. You know, you had an opportunity for what potentially was a get-rich-quick opportunity with the silver mining industry, being that this has been one of the largest silver mining claims in all of North America. You can ask for a better opportunity, but for as many people as that are dealt a winning hand in the mining industry, that many more end up on the other side of it. And you really did have to be a character to survive Tombstone of that time frame. It was not an easy life for anybody out here. People were working really hard. There was a lot still being established as far as law, order, and government. And it's true. You've described it perfectly. You know, in the movies, they are portrayed as characters, but they are larger than life characters.
Indeed they were. So, again, we have rangers here. There's a reason the rangers came here, you know, but fascinating place. Wonderful exhibit here. Of course, we're going to look around and see some other things, but this is it's fabulous to have this. And again, for anyone who is remotely interested in the Old West, this is a must-see. Well, here we are in the courtroom. And you talk about a place that's seen some controversy and some history and some emotion. So this was it.
This was. This is the final seat of justice here in Cochise County. Like I said, from 1882 up until 1931. Many a verdict was handed out right in this very one spot.
Well, you didn't want to spend a lot of time up here because there, and we'll go over, there's the jury box. And imagine some of the stories that were told to those people sitting there. You know, of course, Cochise County is bigger than Connecticut.
Yes.
So everyone from all over would come here for justice, right?
Absolutely. They actually did an expansion on the building in 1903, 1904, just to primarily increase the capacity here in the courtroom because there was that much attention being brought to the cases that we needed more room in here. So it also provided for judges' chambers and a court reporter's office on this side of the building, whereas prior to that, they would have had to cross through the courtroom to the front side of the building for their chambers.
So, did Tombstone have, you know, remember Judge Parker, the hanging judge in Fort Smith? Did Tombstone have someone like that?
Not any one name that I can find. Tombstone does have a history with the courthouse here of having appointed judges that had no background in the legal justice system, though. So we do have our own little colorful past as far as who presided over court cases here.
Well, now, so you could be, you know what, I read recently you can actually be a Supreme Court justice without having a law degree.
Yes.
Which actually, there may be some advantage to that because someone who's literally outside, who understands the law, who can read the law, but who is not necessarily part of, maybe, I'm just saying maybe.
Might be more impartial.
Might be more impartial, absolutely. Now what actually happened in Bisbee, 1,200 of the miners that were seen as troublemakers, I think they were called wobblies. They were essentially communists of the day. I mean, we're talking early 1900s and actually 1917. Communism was a fairly widespread movement in the U.S. at that time. And Erica, what is the deportation jury? What was that about?
So there was actually a trial held right here in the courthouse where Sheriff Wheeler was basically accused of kidnapping those 1,200 men that he relocated, for a more politically correct term, shall we say. And so he actually did stand trial here, and it was one of the largest trials that we did see here in the courtroom was that of the Bisbee deportation.
So the sheriff was on trial?
Yes.
The sheriff was on trial?
Yes.
This is great stuff. I mean, and what was, and since we're here, what was the Bisbee massacre? What was that?
So the Bisbee massacre was essentially a bank robbery gone wrong, to put it in its simplest terms. There were 6 men involved, 5 men that actually carried out the actions. They got to Bisbee ahead of the money being delivered that they were anticipating robbing from Bisbee. And so in a crazy moment of not being able to successfully rob the bank, they went out into the street and started shooting people. And they did kill 3 civilians, including a pregnant woman. And so the 5 men who carried out that action are known as the Bisbee 5. The 6th man was John Heath, and he stood a separate trial because he was essentially the mastermind behind it all. All of them were tried here in the courtroom. They all were found guilty. The 5 were sentenced to death by hanging, and that's what the gallows were originally built for, was for their execution. John Heath was scheduled to be transported to Yuma. He never made it, though, because we had an angry mob storm the jail here, and they took him from the building and lynched him down the street.
Can you spell vigilante or something?
Exactly.
Well, they took care of the problem. Oh,
yes, and he probably saw an easier fate than going to Yuma to prison. That was a tough prison. So.
It was tough, yeah. Now, Erica, since we talked about hanging around, a little humor there. I mean, here we are, friends. This is the real deal. These are the gallows here at Tombstone, and obviously, I mean, they've been rebuilt probably several times, but this would be a place of absolute last resort. This is it. This was a, you know, I see we got a cage over here. I'm assuming that would be a holding area for the prisoner.
So that is one of the original Cochise County jail cells that's been reassembled to scale. More than likely that one would have been in the building, but we've put it out so you all can have a little fun while you're in here. Put your friends and family in jail. We don't go up on the gallows though.
No, well, yeah, but I mean, this is again, friends. This is part of our history, and it wasn't always. Sometimes it wasn't instantly fatal for the participants. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. So the sheriff was actually responsible for determining how high the drop needed to be for the fall to effectively break the prisoner's neck, because that was what was considered a successful, well done hanging, because then they would have instant death, versus the alternatives, either end of the spectrum or bad.
Well, I mean,
so
yeah,
you choke to death, or you have decapitation, shall we say.
Yeah, so, I mean, this was, again, this is a skill that not a lot of us really would like to develop, or even, I mean, and tell me if this is true. A lot of times the executioner, the one who actually did it, would wear a mask, wear a hood. Am I correct?
So not so much here, because the execution was actually done by the sheriff. He would have been the one responsible for pulling the lever. But historically, throughout, not just here in North America, but all over Europe and such, yes, that is true, because the executioner is just the one that's carrying out the legal sentence. They're not the one deciding your fate. Your fate was already decided by a court.
Decided. Well, again, this is part of our history, and something you don't want to miss if you come here to the courthouse. Absolutely.
It is an impressive sight, to say the least.
No kidding. We're standing here looking at the Cochise County Sheriff's up through 1931, which is, when was the courthouse moved to Bisbee? In
1931.
1931, okay. So these were the sheriffs that were here. And of course we had Johnny Behan, the infamous White told you will not arrest me today, Johnny, after the debacle or fracas there at the OK Corral. Texas John Slaughter, a very, very famous, very highly regarded, most interesting character himself. And as you said, there's a whole new study being done on Texas John Slaughter. He was sheriff here, had a home here in Tombstone, a ranch over in Douglas. And then, of course, we had Harry Wheeler, who was a well-known Arizona Ranger. And then C.S. Fly. Now, Fly's photography was where I guess Ike Clanton ran into Fly's photography, or something. They escaped through there. The OK Corral, it bordered on the OK Corral. Okay, that's what the deal was there. C.S. Fly was also, and quite a number of other folks here. Of course, we have some guns from that period as well. But again, as we were talking earlier, you walk in here, and there was so much emotion and energy expended. It's almost like it's amazing. The walls sort of talk.
Yes.
That's not just me imagining that.
No, it's the building. You know the significance of the history that took place here as you're touring the building.
I mean, there really was agony and ecstasy right here. More agony, probably. Now, on the ground floor here in the courthouse, they have a specially set-aside room for exhibits, mining exhibits. We see something here on Tombstone's founder, Ed Schieffelin. Ed Schieffelin has such a great story to tell. It's so inspiring for many of us that have been through life's trials and tribulations. Ed Schieffelin was only 2 nuggets down from throwing away the entire Tombstone, the industry, everything, because he'd been told that his ore was no good. Finally, he got to the right guy, and he had, I think, 2 nuggets he had left. He didn't throw away.
He just had a small little sampling left, basically. There's hardly anything of what he originally started when he ran into Richard Gerd.
So, and so many people, it's amazing how history can be so dramatically affected by the smallest things. And that's one. So, an excellent exhibit here on Ed Schieffelin. And certainly Schieffelin Monument's out of town, just outside town, Schieffelin Hall here. And the name Tombstone came, and certainly correct me if I make a mistake here, but he was out looking. He was a scout for the Army, I think, worked for the Army, and he saw some interesting rocks out here. And so he's out here prospecting. And some of the military folks said, yeah, the only rock you're going to find out there is your tombstone. And so, of course, when he made the big strike, he named the town Tombstone, of course, in honor. And, you know, they had humor about him, just like we did.
They did,
So,
they did. If you look at our street names still to this day through town,
Oh, yeah.
there's a sense of humor to
Tough
be
Nut
found.
Street, you
Yep.
know, that's right.
Well, and you got the good enough mind.
Good enough mind, that's right. So, and you know, such hard work, such extreme circumstance. You had to have a little humor, didn't you?
You did. You really did. Otherwise, life is going to be incredibly depressing and just wear you down out here in the Old West. So might as well have a good laugh about it.
Absolutely. Now we're on the ground floor of the courthouse, and I notice you have some interesting things. You got a piano. You've got a bar. Now there wasn't a bar at the courthouse, was it?
No.
Maybe so. I don't know. They held court in bars sometimes. Tell us what this is.
So originally this office would have been the county recorder's office, so all of your land deeds and things like that.
Right.
All your county paperwork's being filed through this office. Today this functions though as our entertainment room, showing all the different activities that the locals here in Tombstone and Cochise County would have engaged in, that you had because of the wealth and status of Tombstone. So with having traveling theater troops coming through, these are some of the original costumes. Also the variety of bars and other establishments that one could visit while here in Tombstone. Faro, we've got the Faro table just on the other side of the room. That is a card game that is still illegal to this day here in Tombstone. Can't play it for gain, but it was the game of choice for that time frame. As well as the more wholesome attractions too, from just having the baby grand piano that belonged to an original Tombstone family here, to playing baseball or other sports and activities.
Well, I mean, again, same people just like today. They needed an outlet. I mean, working the mines was hard.
It was.
I mean, they ran, 24 hours a day because underground's always dark.
Right.
You know, and so people, I mean, they worked hard and they played hard. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So I see you got a Victrola down there, apparently, or an old record player, talking machines, what it was called. So really, for the day, between St. Louis and San Francisco, Tombstone was kind of uptown, huh?
This was.
know?
There was a lot to do here. There was fine dining to be found in Tombstone. You could get fresh oysters here in Tombstone back in the late 1880s.
Amazing. Now they had to come in on ice from West Coast or somewhere.
Somewhere. They weren't found locally,
No,
I
they
can
weren't.
guarantee you that.
I see a boat for sale out here. I say, you know, that's a real optimist. You know?
Yeah.
So, but although, of course, Arizona's only 60 miles from the ocean. People don't know that. The Arizona beach actually is the Gulf of California or Gulf of Cortez. It's only 60 miles across there. But that was, in those days, as probably even today, that would be a 60 miles that you may get there, you may not.
That's very true.
It's amazing. Now, Erica, if you would, give us some highlights of some of the other things here on the floor.
Absolutely. So throughout the building, we've got exhibits on just about everything related to Tombstone and Cochise County, from mining history, ranching history, what home life was like for the early pioneers and the early homesteaders here in Tombstone, frontier life from the Apaches to Fort Huachuca, and of course the gunfight at the OK Corral. Have to go into that a bit here. We also have our entertainment room exhibits, which are really fun because Tombstone was a cultural epicenter in its time, and you had every imaginable form of entertainment coming through here, and so we have a whole room dedicated to those exhibits.
Well, like you said, you had people from theater people.
Yes.
Tombstone was the largest community between St. Louis and San Francisco at that time.
Absolutely.
So you had everybody who was anybody, actors and players, just like in the Tombstone movie, where you had people come to the Birdcage Theater. You had the biggest people there were, I guess, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. Traveling theater troops from all over the country made stops right here in Tombstone to perform at the Birdcage Theater or over at Schieffelin Hall. We had gambling and drinking, of course, but we also had family fun entertainment as well, from baseball to racing and things of that nature too.
Well, amazing stuff, absolutely. Of course, Well, again, it's always fun to come to Courthouse. I've been here a number of times, and every time I come, there's something different. In fact, we just don't have enough time today, but we would like to make a rain check where we can come back and cover some of these things, certainly, because it's a great thing you folks do. This is important historically. It's important for our area, and you know what? Helping people of today, the younger people today, to understand what life was like.
Absolutely. It isn't just what was portrayed in the movies. These things really happen.
This is real. Well, Erica, thank you so much
You're
for
very,
taking
very welcome.
time to show us around some of these things, and I promise you we'll come back.
Sounds great.